Okay, first of all, we are going to have a guest speaker speaking just after announcements. This is my friend Philip Chan. He's going to be talking about fighting game mechanics for those of you who have begun working on your fighting games. I've got a couple announcements before that though. So first of all, there is the H&A Student Showcase in the Art Quad and Ballroom tomorrow. And we are going to have an arcade machine there, so feel free to stop by and say hi. Just want to let you guys know about that. There's the Halloween party that we're having on the 31st, and Angelica has created a Facebook event for that, which you can find on our Facebook page. So please sign up and RSVP if you would like to go to that. And is Angelica here? All right. Well, I would let her talk a little bit about that, but I'm not really in charge of that department. Another reminder that the Silicon Valley Innovation Challenge, get your stuff in by November 1st if you want to enter that competition. And on November 7th, we're going to have Ben Prunty come in and talk. And he did the music for FTL. So be sure to come by and see that. That's all I have for announcements. Oh, sorry, except one more thing. Two more things, actually. First of all, we need to officially announce the winner of the previous challenge. And so I tallied up all the votes, including the ones I got through email. And so the winning team was Midterms. The group who made Midterms. So, you want to just like clap and everyone can applaud for you or something?
No, that would only increase my hubris, so yeah.
You get a chance to gloat publicly?
Okay. So you're proud of me?
Yeah, so you can't really throw me down.
Yeah. My life's goal.
I think it's perfect.
No, 1%.
So, this is the winning team. Let's applaud for them. This is what you get. This is what you get for winning. Applause. Applause. Yeah, I mean, did you want to say anything? Words of victory? Words of advice? Good job, team.
My dad.
We're working on getting prizes. We'll see what's that.
GGWP.
All right.
It's all thanks to Diana.
So,
our girl.
congratulations, you guys. You won.
Thanks.
Yay. Slide to
No prize.
No prize.
I'll give you pictures of mine. Yeah.
So briefly, I've got two more quick announcements. One, on November 14th, we're going to have people demo what they have of their fighting games so far. So please try and have something for November 14th, whether that's some art or a working prototype or something. We want to sort of do a halfway check-in. And then on November 28th, yes.
What about the polished games?
The polished games, I'm just getting to that. The polished games are going to be due on November 28th. And that's going to be the end of the Fighting Games Challenge, and we're going to do a tournament using the fighting games. And Philip,
I'll call some friends.
He'll call some friends, and we'll see if we can get some professional fighting games people to play your games.
I know right now.
All right, so that's all we've got for announcements.
Okay. So I just wanted to touch on two of the announcements that you made. So the Halloween party is next week, right? Support your club. The money goes to the club, right? To pay for the event, but also to
Cover refreshments and stuff.
Yeah, to cover refreshments for the meeting and so forth. And the other thing is that if you were part of any of the challenges that we've had up until now, either in the game challenges for the club, or you were part of the NeuroSky Hackathon or the Game Jam that we did last week, you have a viable prototype for this Silicon Valley Innovation Challenge. This is the kind of thing that get some honor for yourselves. There's $5,000 worth of prizes, and I've been told that by the people who are on the judging committee that they don't see a lot of games. So having a prototype, you are you're well ahead of a lot of other people. If you need any help putting together or getting this together, I'm happy to help you any way I can, even if it's just like making a video of the game that you've made or whatnot, finding the right paperwork. The deadline is November 1st, so, okay. Thank you.
All right. So now we're done with announcements. And I'm going to hand it over to Philip Chan.
All right, how's everybody doing?
Thank you.
Awesome. I should probably duplicate this display. That's a smart move. There we go. Much better. All right, so my friend Gavin here says that you're doing a fighting game challenge. So why am I talking today? Well, first off, here's who I am. My name is Philip Chan. I graduated from here in computer science. I've run a professional fighting game tournament event for about 3 years. We've been recognized by Australian television, a couple of places in Southern California. It's pretty cool, and we've been doing pretty well. I've also been inside the competitive fighting game circuit since 2005. I've gone to tournaments in Las Vegas, Los Angeles. I've played in Japan as well. And I've also been a professional commentator and participant in these large fighting game events for Twitch.tv, for Blaze Blue in 2011. And I also did commentary for Persona 4 Arena for SureYouCan.com, if you know what that is. I'm also a game designer, or at least I like to think I am. So, this is a brief warning. We're going to be entering fighting game lingo territory. This is the point where, this is why I'm here. If there's any term that comes out of my mouth naturally that you're like, what's he talking about? Please raise your hand, stop me, go. But I don't know what a mix-up is, and I'll explain it to you.
I'll just do that for all of them.
Okay, okay. And its reason for that is not because, it's because every single fighting game has its own unique mechanic. It usually has its own system mechanic. You have things like guard break, guard force, one more burst, all these other kind of things, and you're like, what do these do? And they become specifically tailored per game. So if something doesn't make sense, please let me know. And just really quickly, anybody play fighting games? Anybody enter fighting game tournaments?
Disappears.
Oh, I'm just curious. All right, so that means, hopefully you'll learn something, and maybe you'll enter a tournament. All right, so before I go on any of these fighting game things, I want you to know the pitfalls in designing a fighting game. In other words, these are the things that might come up when you're in the middle of your development cycle. You have to remember, one of the things is you need to remember that system design is greater than the character design. As much as it's awesome to have a dude that is dressed in a bathrobe throwing loofahs and puppies at people as a character concept, if it doesn't work in in a system, then it doesn't work. You can't put the what's the saying? The horse before the cart.
The cart before the horse.
The cart before the horse. You can't
the
put
horse
the cart
typically goes before the cart.
Right. Okay. You can't put the cart before the horse. So, don't develop brain-dead strategies. I'll get more into this when I start talking more about the deeper intricacies about fighting game mechanics. But these are things like, why would you give a gun to someone in the middle of a sword battle? Is that fair to everybody else that's using swords? It's basically the idea of this character has this amount of tools. This character has this amount of tools. Is it really fair for this character to be able to do everything better than this character? What's the point?
So don't play favorites, I guess.
Yeah, don't. You can play favorites, but that's a very delicate balance called intentional imbalance that I'll talk about in a minute. Also, try to simplify your approach. I don't know how far you are in your technical development in other words, matching art to sprites, that kind of thing. But you want to try to simplify the movements as much as possible. Street Fighter 2, when it first came out, had 3 different sprites to do its famous Shoryuken. It's the wind up, the punch, and then he flies into the air. Just keeping it simple will greatly increase your productivity because you won't be stuck animating sprites. And it's okay to keep the roster simple. You don't need 12 characters, you don't need 24 characters, you don't need 48 characters. You can even play with just 3 or 4 characters if you just make those characters unique enough or interesting enough. Don't be pressured by this. Don't go Mortal Kombat 2 and go, I'm gonna make this character, but I'm gonna change one move and then he's gonna be a different color. And then we're gonna do that 5 more times. So don't fall into that. All right. So before I assume that you already have a general concept or idea that you have for your fighting games. Things to consider are pretty much your target audience. Are you targeting a bunch of people that are just like, hey, this is just going to be a party game, kind of fun kind of thing, like Super Smash Brothers? Or are you going something like super serious, like I play Marvel, I need to link all of these 1 hits in order to do the super and then kill him in 1 combo? Also, you have to think about the system, how the system mechanics work. Does the model of does the system make sense? You have life bars and you have supers. It doesn't make sense.
Could you define super?
Oh, supers. I'm sorry. You have supers, which are like special moves that you do when you have like a certain amount of meter or.
Could you define meter?
Or meter being the stuff that accumulates as you hit an opponent or block, etc. It's usually meter is usually used in fighting game mechanics for the player to use offensive and defensive strategies. So, and then the last thing that you need to know is how will the game interpret commands? A lot of people complain in fighting games about input lag. This is something that is actually very prevalent in higher level play. People will complain, they will go to tournaments, they'll go to organizers, they'll go, dude, this display sucks, it is input lag, there's just so much lag, I can't do any of my combos, anything. This is dependent on the fact that your system interpreter is your fundamental basis for your fighting game. In other words, you have how their directional pads move influences their moves, their special moves, and their general movement. Okay, that kind of sounded weird. Let me simplify it just by saying you need to have a good way for people to really interpret commands that are given by the player. So, just really quickly, I know we're getting kind of a little technical into this, but for example, if you're playing a game and you have just a random avatar standing right here, and you have another avatar standing right here, and you want to throw a fireball at this guy, and he's going to be really unhappy about that, then how do you do it? So, most fighting games use this keypad notation in order to interpret things. Thank you. And what they do is basically, if you put a control D-pad right here, then 8 would be up, 6 would be right, 4 would be left, 2 would be down, etc. So, how complicated do you want to make your fighting game? You can have it where 2, 3, 6, which is a quarter circle, like this, to do a fireball. Or you could just have it very simplified, where you just, if you're holding forward and you press an attack button, then you get a fireball. Or you could even simplify it even more, and you can just press a button and you get a fireball. That's all up to you. It's also on a technical aspect of whoever is developing the engine for the interpreter, you need to keep in mind that you're going to have this history of moves inside your game. You need to come up with an algorithm that is not too lenient that you read too many moves and then give the wrong move, but not too strict that you don't get any moves unless you do it completely perfectly. The idea is, say, let's see, this is later on, but say a game runs at 60 frames per second, okay? So you have a 60 frame per second game. That means every frame, there's 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down to 60 frames in 1 second. What I'm talking about when I talk about the interpreter is that as the computer is reading the inputs by the player, you need to figure out, well, if you pressed up, down, right, left, down, 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 how far will you go before you interpret this as a certain move? It's something to keep in mind. Anyway, moving on, let's get to actual fighting game concepts. So, fighting game concepts, bare bones, have typically the following. You have your life bar, you have your win counter, you have your timer, and then you have the two character avatars battling it out. Simple enough. The things that you need to know are that what keeps fighting games different from games such as from games that where you shoot someone and they just automatically die, or you hit someone and they lose a certain amount of life, is that fighting games usually have some notation of a high-low system. What I mean by high-low system is that when a person is guarding by standing, they should.
Did you find guarding?
Oh, guarding is holding. Guarding is when you're holding. You're basically
Blocking?
You're blocking. Yeah, you're basically blocking. It's the same thing. Guarding, blocking, they're interchangeable. When you're guarding high, if your opponent does attacks that are directed straight at your head, or
Did you find guarding high?
All rats.
Give it an apartment.
guarding.
I'm just making sure. People may not be familiar with fighting games.
It's true. So
I'm guessing you've got
let
like
me
different levels of
actually
guarding.
just draw the zones real quick. So say you have a character avatar, okay, and you split this character avatar in half. I'm not very happy about that. So if you do an attack that hits the top side of the character avatar, or the bottom side of the character avatar, naturally he takes damage. But blocking allows it so that the player has the option to not take damage from one side or another side. So if an opponent does an attack that hits low and he's blocking low, he doesn't take any damage. Naturally, the same vice versa. If you're blocking high and they do an high attack, it doesn't do any damage. Does blocking make sense to everybody? We're good?
It's kind of analogous to just martial arts.
Yeah.
Blocking high and low.
Yeah. And then you have people that program fighting games that troll you, where it looks like it goes high, but it actually hits low. So, this happens, by the way. So beyond the attack and the blocking, you also have a throw mechanic. Throw mechanics are not required. You are not required to have a throw mechanic inside a fighting game, though it adds more depth to your fighting game because people that are thrown, people can be thrown even if they are blocking. It adds another thing to it.
Throw mechanic is when you like grab a player and toss
Yeah,
them.
you basically grab them. It works somewhere like this. An attack beats a throw when somebody attempts to throw. A throw beats a block when somebody when they're blocking and they don't do anything. And a block, if blocked correctly, will punish an attack. So, yeah, fighting games revolve around a very dynamic rock, paper, scissors model. So, I've already explained these concepts already with the high-low mix-up. And mix-up is a catch-all term for what the character avatar does in the span of the entire match. Do they when they throw high? How much do they throw high? How much do they throw low? That's the general catch-all phrase. Throws will connect. It's also important to note that throws will connect on non-attacking characters. This is important because that means you can hit them on block, but you can also throw attacking characters if the attack is slow enough. If somebody has a wind-up punch that goes like this, and your throw is like this, you should be able to throw them before they actually wind up punch you. It's a matter of timing, and that also works into the whole frame talk. I'll talk more about this in frame data later on. And blocking certain attacks will leave people open for a move to connect. In other words, if you try really hard to smack someone and they block it, then naturally you're like, oh crap, it didn't connect, and you're in this awkward position where they can counter. Think of it as like this. But then you ask yourself, if the system is RPS, what makes this game interesting?
What's RPS?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, okay. I don't think it needs to be an acronym.
Okay, good. User gratification is usually found in being able to react and predict the opponent's motions. Hey, this dude likes to punch high a lot. I'm gonna hit him low a lot so he misses me, and I'm just gonna duck under him while I do it. The satisfaction in calling them out. You can also win with certain strategies. If there's a character that, just say throws, for example, just throws all day, every day, it's really satisfying to throw throw someone to death. You just be like, yo, you got thrown. What are you gonna do about it? Also, some games have a built-in comeback mechanic. Comeback mechanics are like in, has anybody played Marvel vs. Capcom 3? Marvel vs. Capcom? Okay, some of you. Well, basically what Marvel does in that game is, if you have a certain amount of health, and you activate this thing called X Factor. X Factor makes it so that all of your attack damage, all of your movement, all of your defense, it increases. So it's a comeback factor that you can only use once in a match. It makes things interesting for people because they're like, well, I'm down, but I'm not out. Or you could be developing it for the kind of perspective, which is you're developing the game so that people can just go, I'm going to mash these buttons, I mashed better than you, ha 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 ha, without getting really, really into the system mechanics. So I mentioned this already. Standardly, every fighting game in the world right now runs at 60 frames per second. It's because of the math. It's because of how the sprites work. It's how the logic works, and it looks beautiful. In the past,
screen refresh rate too.
yeah, it's also the screen refresh rate. So these are the basic unit blocks of development and of movement. And I've already explained this already, so you don't need to know any much more of that. So let's take an example. So if I have a character that wants to slash his sword in front of him, the order goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Every single move has a startup, an active, and a recovery. This is important because of this, because startup is how long it takes before the move initiates. In other words, how long will it be before the actual attack connects? Active is where the actual hurting happens. It's where when the contact happens and the damage is calculated. And the recovery is if the move is blocked or you get the hit off, how much more time do you have to land another attack? Does this make sense to anyone? Is there anybody confused? It's okay. Raise your hand. I don't mind. Yeah.
Completely.
Really confused? Okay. Here, let me do a real life analogy. If you say there's a punching bag right in front of you, okay? You see the punching bag. Right now, you're not doing anything to the punching bag. So there's zero startup, there's nothing. You haven't done anything. But now you're thinking, I'm going to punch this bag. So suddenly you have an attack. It says punch bag. It takes you less than half a second for you to make contact with the bag, right? This is your startup. You haven't actually touched anything yet. In other words, you don't hurt.
In a fighting game, is that like the opponent gets that much time of like advanced warning of your move?
Yeah, to an extent, that's correct. So like I was saying, if you're punching a punching bag, then from this point on, you're still not threatening. The punching bag's like, yo, this guy hasn't hit me yet. This guy's just looking like an idiot. Oh, look, hi, Mr. Hand. Like, that's what you're doing right now. But then active means you're in a position where the force from your arm has actually done some damage. This lasts for about like 0.3 seconds or something. It's the blow, it's the impact. After the impact is over, you're like, yeah, I punched that bag. It's like, yes. And if you're feeling good, you'll punch it again. And then you'll start another cycle of startup, active, recovery. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So would the recovery apply to what you're hitting more, or?
So let me clarify what this means by recovery then. This is from the attacker's perspective. So for example, these two are startup, okay? He's winding up and then he's finally reaching out and the blade still doesn't do any damage. The active is here. This is the red box that represents the actual hurt. Then after this comes out, he reverts to the recovery status. If the attack connected, he can try another move. If the attack did not connect and the opponent's blocking, he may or may not be able to move. And I'll explain more about this in frame data. So does this make sense so far? Yeah?
Well, what you're saying does make sense, but I had a question about like moves that have their own follow-up where you don't have another move after them. Like example, Nightmare from Soul Calibur.
Uh-huh.
If he does like an attack where he spins, his first turn will hit someone with the sword, but then his second turn is his actual blow. Is that two active states?
No. What active is the instance in which the hurtbox actually works. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm confusing terms. The hitbox actually happens. Oh my
I
god.
actually like Hurtbox.
It's descriptive.
Well, the thing is, hitbox and hurtbox are two different terms.
Okay.
Hurtbox is the instance in which you are able to be hit out of your move. These are the blue lines. Hitbox is the red line.
Okay, so blue is where other people can hit you. Red is where you're hitting another player.
Yeah. So that's why the concept of counter hit comes up, because you'll be winding up for an attack, and somebody hits you while you're winding up for the attack. Naturally, your hurtbox was hit. Oh my god. This is. But basically, these concepts I'll cover later on.
Okay.
But does that answer your question about actives?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, if you have really fancy like twirling motion, I mean, if you could like pray to the sun god and like then do a move, but as long as it won't actually do any sort of damage until active.
Yeah, but I meant like a spinning move where it can hit an enemy twice.
Oh, hit an enemy twice. Okay, then there's two active states.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's good.
There would be active, then recovery, then active. There would be startup, active, recovery, active, recovery. Yeah. So yeah, every single move needs to have these fundamental concepts. You cannot have just startup active, because if you do that, it's like, it doesn't make any sense. So, static difference and those numbers, I'm going to show you in just a moment. These don't make sense. For some reason, these slides got swapped around. I don't expect you to understand this chart. This is a hitbox. This is a startup, recovery, active, static difference, damage, move set chart. What it says is you have a certain move, it does this much damage. It has this much priority compared to other moves. This is a very advanced concept I'm not going to cover. There's it can be guarded. It has this much startup, so it takes 7 frames to start up, then 2 frames to actually hit where it actually hits, then 15 frames of recovery after it actually hits. Static difference is an important number because it's a good way for you to gauge if your attacks are actually fair and balanced.
What is static difference?
Static difference is this. You take the sum of the startup and active frames and you subtract it by the recovery frames. If you have a negative number, that means the person that used the move is at a disadvantage after they're done. However, if their numbers are positive afterwards, then the attacker still has the frame advantage. Now, frame advantages, in a simplified sense, are like this. Say you're about to run a race. You're both at the line. Right now, nobody has an advantage. You're lined up. But what this says is you ran a previous race, and because you ran a previous race, if it's negative, you'll be a little bit behind the line. If it's positive, you're going to be a little bit over the line for the next race. Think of every race as one move. And if you think, does that make sense? Anybody confused?
So it's not like you ran the entire race and that's the rate in which you are going to be at constantly?
Think, if a move is 13 frames, right? If a move is 13 frames, then your race is only 13 frames long. So it's like, here, actually, you know what would make it easier? Let's say you start off with an altercation, okay? And you do an attack, so you attacked, and that leaves you at -2. What that means is, the next time you do your move, you add startup. So, in other words, if you're at -2, that means instead of this move, say, if you being 7, instead of it being 7, Since you're -2 behind, in reality it's more like 9. Because you're starting further behind.
Also, it's not 7 minus 2, it's 7 minus -2, so that's 9. It's like you're minus.
Is it kind of like the offset between
It's
your
basically
moves and
an
the other
offset,
guy?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to decay here.
This is mostly math.
Okay.
All right, are we all clear on this? Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. One thing to note when you're programming this game is that the sprites themselves are not the actual contact hitbox. In other words, for this character right here, his hurt box, in other words, the way you make contact with him, is not this leg or this jacket or this sword. What you typically do is you have your sprite and you have a general rectangular box that represents it. Naturally, people go crazy with this. They'll be like, "Hey, this dude is slashing. I'm gonna make his hurt box this big," and that's not fair, but it happens. So it's something to keep in mind when you're developing the sprite and the hitbox hurtbox logic.
I think GameMaker does pixel perfect collision by default,
Okay.
but you might be able to enable some kind of hitbox stuff.
Yeah,
like
if you
that.
just draw like a rectangle around it, you're good to go. So. All right, so the way hitboxes and hurtboxes interact are pretty straightforward. You have, if 2 hitboxes overlap, in other words, if 2 red areas overlap, they clash. I'll explain all of these terms in the next slides. If 2 hurtboxes overlap, nothing happens. That just means, "Hey dude, what's going on?" "Oh, I don't know, we're pretty close to each other." "I know." Hitbox on hurtbox is naturally damage. And both hitboxes on both characters on each other's hurtbox damage rate. Okay, that sounds really complicated, but basically means if the hurtbox is, for some reason, like,
It's like 2 dudes hitting.
yeah, it's like
each other
it's like a
at the same
cross
time.
punch. It's like cross punch.
If both hitboxes don't actually clash. Then.
So basically, if you do a damage trade when when both players are on low life, then it counts as like a draw instead.
Yeah, because so that's why you'll see sometimes when you play fighting games, there will be a counter, like a double counter. And how that works is your hitbox hit their hurtbox, and their hurtbox hit your hurtbox at the exact same time. So depending on the move, one person might have an advantage, but overall you both just took damage.
No.
All right, so just so you have a visual representation, clashing looks a little bit like this. This is the previous sprite from before. They haven't actually intersected yet. So this is the rectangular box that represents his hitbox. But the idea is, when you throw the move out, the rectangle immediately appears on that screen, and the logic is calculated as such. So if any of these boxes intersect at all, a clash occurs. There are 2 options for you to program a clash. You can either go reset animation, which means these swords clash against one another. Steel hits steel. There's a nice spark, and then you just go back to normal. Or you can simplify it and just make it on hurtbox as well, and just both take damage. Whatever works better for you. Here's a concept that a lot of people don't understand. Block stun. Well, when a move is blocked, you can't take action for a certain time. So everybody here's played fighting games, right? Like to an amount? Alright. So if you're in the corner, right? If you're in the corner, actually, there's a big whiteboard. Where's this? If you are in the corner, your character avatar is inside the corner. If a person is crouching down and he's punching at your shins, but you're guarding, if nobody moves, how do you get out? In other words, he's just doing this. Me. And you're like, that's cool. I know I'm blocking, but when do I get to move? That is bad fighting game design. This is a big pitfall because a lot of early games did not take block stun into account. Block stun is the idea that when you cool down from a punch, it spaces you a little bit and it gives the opponent some breathing room. If you don't do that, people stay in place and they don't do anything. You want to be at a point where if a person punches you in the shins while you're guarding 3 times, he's far enough away afterwards that you can do something about it. If you don't do that, then it's just, well, I'm in blocking, what can I do? None of my inputs are going to be read because I'm in the block state. Remember, sprites are either attacking, or they're blocking, or they're taking damage. Those are the 3 states generally in fighting games. I didn't put it on the slide, but that's the general idea. You're either taking damage, you're either blocking, or you're either attacking. So, in the case that you do get this snooty little brat that's punching you in the shins, something that you can program in is called reversals. Are people familiar with reversals at all? Okay, not many of you. So, so what a reversal is you say, I don't have a hurt box. Now, at the moment you heard me say that, you're like, well, Phil, you just told me that hitbox and hurtbox is very important, it's unfair, and you don't have a hurt box, and it's kind of unfair. What the hell? Well, that's because reversal. Well, that's because reversals are fully invulnerable, but they come at a cost. The cost is you program it so that their static difference is humongous. It's like your static difference is in a whole second afterward. It's the idea of, oh no, I'm in the corner. Okay, I'm gonna get him off me. Hiya!
So huge static difference. That just means they've got like a really long recovery time compared to how fast
you basically have a humongous amount of recovery, so that after calculation, you're stuck. Like you're stuck just doing, yeah, I did it. Wait, I didn't do it. Oh god, he's gonna punch me. Oh my god, he punched me. Like that's the idea. Why do we need reversals? The reason is because no matter how well you program your game, one of the reasons is reversals are a good safe bet. If somebody comes up with a strategy where they're always in the opponent's face and you have no way to get them off you, a reversal provides a tool so that you can get out when they throw another move. It provides a lot of ease of play. It also provides momentum changes. If you're in the corner and you're getting beat up, landing that reversal can blow a person away so that you can reposition yourself to be still in the match. Also, gaps in the offense can be turned around. Some things are, there's a saying that a fighting game character has an airtight string. What that means is you do a series of moves for that character and they're uncontestable. In other words, there's no gap in startup when you're doing all of these moves until you get to a certain point. That's an airtight string.
So it's like a kind of combo that no one can just like break in.
It's like if you already know your opponent blocks, you want to keep the offensive going, right? You're not just going to hit him and then go, oh crap, I didn't hit him. Okay. You're going to hit and they blocked. Okay, I want to throw another move because I can, because he's still stuck in block stun. Hit, hit, hit. Oh, well, he didn't take any of those, so now I can block. Some people will be sneaky and they'll go, I'm going to throw a move at you, but this one isn't safe because I have to wind up a lot before the second hit happens. Reversals take advantage of that. There will be gaps in the character movement and the character action. This also combats the mostly positive attack problem. If you have too much static difference that is positive, then they're stuck in the corner, then they can't get out. This invulnerability allows them to get out. And this is the famous Ken Shoryuken, if you know what it is. It's from Street Fighter. It's where his hurt box, does not exist here. His hitbox is right here. Okay, we're getting more and more. All right, at this point, let's take a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. Okay, so pat yourself on the back real quick because you learned about frame data. Guess what?
Oh.
Half of the competitive fighting game scene that complains that a move is unfair does not study frame data. And now you know what it is. Baller.
Yay.
So, moving on. Now we're going to get a little bit more into the combo structure. I've been talking about random punches, but it's not fair if one character is able to just do the same thing over and over again and, like capitalize off of it. Combo structure is the idea that you force your players to alternate their actions and their general strategy. So, for example, let's see. What's a good example here? Well, let me explain this first. The idea is you can do a tree layout combined with a tech timing layout. Now, that sounds really fancy, but it's really straightforward, and I'll tell you why. Tree layout is the idea that once you do a certain move, you're allowed to do any of these other moves ahead of it. In other words, say a guy has 3 moves, okay? He has a punch, he has a headbutt, and he has a kick. If he does the punch, he shouldn't be able to punch again. He should kick or headbutt. That's what this mechanic is doing. It splits the strategy so that they can't abuse the same move over and over again. The tech timing layout is the idea that if you land a certain hit, that person won't be able to do anything, right? They're just getting hit. They're like, oh God, you got me. But the idea is they should be able to just go, ha, I hit you. Now you're hit. You are in hit state. Hitting, dead. That should never happen. It's more like tech timing layout says, I hit you. Now there's a timer over my head that says he can't do anything for a certain amount of time. When you hit them again, your timer decreases because you did more damage. When you hit them again, your timer decreases, you do more damage. Does that make sense?
So, the
Anyway,
So that's
cooldown-
the opponent being stunned. Like the more damage you do, the less stunned they are, so they don't get completely wiped out.
It's like this. If you have your character, and then you have your other character, he's not very happy because he just got hit. So he's like, donk. Hurts. Then the thing is, as soon as this attack connects, he's in a state where I'm getting hit. In this state, he can't reversal, he can't block because he's already been hit, and he can't attack. The idea is, he has a timer over his head of, there's this dude over here over his head that's like, man, I feel sorry for that bro. He'll be okay in like 5 seconds. Well, 5 seconds is entirely too long, but you get the idea. It's, okay, more like 0.5 seconds. So in 0.5 seconds, he'll be able to recover, and then he'll be at neutral state, and he'll be able to block, reversal, or attack. The idea is, if you keep connecting attacks or specials over and over again, this timer gets smaller and resets. So the next attack hits. Now he has 0.3 seconds before he's okay. The next attack hit again. Now he has 0.1 seconds till he's okay, which naturally means he's probably okay after that attack. The reason for that is so that you don't have infinite loop attacks. Here's why it's important. Hit. This goes to 100, by the way. Hit. So the idea is he's in a hit state, right? And this guy's just doing the same move over and over again. Why is that? Because that move is just good enough that he can do it, and the timer's like, well, we don't have a timer. Thus, it doesn't work out. He keeps doing this, by the way.
Oh man.
Yeah. I'll put this over here.
Yeah, what
like
game is
4
that?
minutes, really?
Yeah, this game is actually competitive in Japan. It's called Fist of the North Star,
Oh, yeah.
Because there's great.
or Hokuto no Ken for you.
Oh, no.
And basically gameplay revolves around, I got the special on you, now I better not drop this combo. Because this combo's hard. it doesn't look hard, but it's extremely hard. It's like you only have, they're basically hitting the frame, like the 1 or 2 frames, perfectly every single time. That's how hard this combo is. So it's not like anybody can do it. But if you program without this, then it's going to be like anybody can do it. So. Alright, so as much as I want to keep watching this.
So that game does have the timer in it.
It does have a tech timer, but the thing is, people abuse the fact that it wasn't programmed correctly. So they did it something so that the tech timer doesn't exist for it anymore. And now the only thing that's left keeping the person from recovering is this one flag that says, well, he did 999 hits, which means you're gonna die. You can't do anything about that. So yeah, I mentioned this in vulnerability timer. The point at which characters have been hit so much they cannot take any more damage. In that game, it doesn't exist. But with this timing, that makes it so that games are not touch of death. Touch of death is the concept of, I threw you, now you're dead. I touched you, now you're dead. I swept you, now you're dead.
Dive kick?
You missed, now you're dead.
Dive kick?
Well, dive kick is, I touched you, you're dead. You touched me, we're both dead. Great game. Anyway, so typically you want to allow your players to also know that they're in a state where they won't be interrupted or they're safe. This is usually a white bright flash or some sort of like circle reticle or any sort of like text in the upper right hand corner near the health bar that says recovery. You want to be able to tell your player, hey, I'm okay now. Let's get back on the horse. The reason why we have a mobility timer besides combos is that there's this thing called a reset. And what a reset is remember when we talked about hitting high and hitting low? When the damage receiver techs, you sometimes are in a state where you can go, well, I think he's going to block low again, so I'm going to throw high, just as he recovers. That's what a reset is. So, and invulnerability timers also reward the pain receiver because they can reversal while they're in this like magical state where they can't be hurt. They can block until the opponent does something that allows you to punish them, or they can throw them if the attack is slow enough. Any questions? Okay. So here's an example of the invulnerability timer. This character. I love this game, by the way. This character does a combo, and then it slams this character into the floor. At this point, this character is untargetable. He exists, so you can't just run over him, or you can't just stand on top of him. But you can't hurt him. He has no hurt box. But at the same time, he cannot give any commands. When he finishes the recovery, then he's in a state where you can actually hurt him, he can block, he can throw, etc. So, I don't know if you're going to implement this, because this is actually pretty complicated and it will break game logic. But, but an idea is, an advanced blocking mechanic is something called a cross-up. Now, a cross-up is, I'm going to assume that everybody's got to program a game where you can jump, correct?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to program a game that where you don't jump, that's okay. If you're not going to program a game where you jump.
If you're not going to program a game where you jump.
If you're not going to program a game where you jump, then it's okay. But if you do program a game where you jump, or there's some sort of mechanic where you pass by the opponent without getting hurt, or dodge to the side, a cross-up may come in handy. This is when one person is holding block one way, and it becomes a forward another way because you got to the other side. Here, Gavin, stand up for a second.
You're not going to hit me.
No. Okay, so the idea of a cross-up is if I attack you, you can block this, right? It's like, oh no, I'm not hitting him. So the idea is a cross-up is where I go, hey, just kidding.
What?
Because you're looking that way, you're holding the motion that goes that way. And I can hurt you. Blocking is okay. So
That
okay.
sounds like you just stepped back, like back step and went behind him.
It's called a rolling mechanic. You don't have to implement this. This is something that's special. But the idea is, Gavin, here, point when you're blocking, the control pad is going this way, right? When you're blocking, you're holding backward. You're holding backward, you're blocking. So in Gavin's head, the arrow is going this way. My attack is coming from this direction. So he's blocking. But if he doesn't catch on in time, and I'm over here, he's no longer blocking. He's actually walking forward because he's pointed this way. So you're actually pointing, holding forward, walking towards me without actually hurting me. So I hit him, and that's it. And
Question.
Yeah.
How much longer are we going to do this? Because
this is the last slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because my battery's practically dead at this point.
Okay, got it. Sorry. All right, so that's the Crossup. In this character, it's doing the same thing. Block's done, rolls to the side, and then the fireball that was on top of her explodes. And since she was holding this direction, she's actually walking forward towards it and gets hit. All right, so supers and specials are governed by input, and if you choose power meter variables, I've already mentioned how you can throw a fireball. I've already mentioned meter. They fundamentally follow the rules of hurt boxes and hitboxes. As soon as a command is interpreted, it has its own hitbox and hurtbox for the entire animation. That's pretty much it. And remember to watch out for positive numbers. If they do a super, you probably want to make sure it's not a safe super. In other words, so you probably want to punish them if it doesn't land, and put the recovery at a very high amount. But yeah, so ultimately, it's your choice to break and alter these rules as you see fit. You might come up with a new fighting game concept. No block fighter. That's what Divekick did. So, and if you have any questions about fighting game mechanics that you could come across, or ideas, or you're having trouble with the logic inside your games, feel free to shoot me an email. This is my email that I check for work-related things. So, philipchan89@gmail.com. Thanks for your attention, guys.
Next week is our social. And I'm not calling it a party. Try to avoid saying party because we need to make it sound academic. So social because it's like a mixer. You know what I mean? When you get groups of artists, programmers, engineers together to work to have fun. Okay, so I put flyers here in the query. I put some in the student union. If you think you know where you want to put it, let me know too, because I don't know where the math people have their classes, so I don't know where to go for that. And then if you live in the dorms, please, you need to talk to me, because I need to give you guys some of these so you can put in your dorm floor. But I don't think anyone lives in the bricks here, do they? You live in the bricks? Okay, and I need to give you that. Anybody live, what's the next dorm, not CVB or Joe, right? Does anyone live in the Joe area?
I can see you.
Okay, thanks, okay. And, yeah, you'll see postings on the Facebook page, I've talked to some of you already who I need help with, but if you can lend me a hand, just come talk to me, because I need more hands. Especially on that day, so, yeah. The setup's early, we have, at least an hour and a half set up, but I know you guys have class or midterms, I'm not gonna try to pull you away, but,
Because I'm
if you can help me, that'd be great. So, that's it.
I don't have any.
I have to start this. I'll sign, if you have a game console, actually, let me know as soon as possible, even after this meeting, because, yeah, we just need to make sure we secure those. Those are one of the first things we need to make secure. So, yeah. And we're gonna bring the arcade machines down, so, just those two. I don't know where the black one went. Where did the black one go?
It's at the tech shop.
Oh.
Life is still using it.
Does that one turn on?
That one's not hooked up right now.
Okay, did they all turn on?
Oh, we gotta build it.
Oh, okay, never mind. We'll just take two of those.
We can talk to our ace, Danny.
that it?
Oh, did you take the projector down?
Did you want?
Well, I was thinking could we watch a game and then well, you don't have to put the sound on. Like, what do you mean by it? Like, I see it, but I don't
You
play
can
in the.
comment.
Yeah, maybe
commentary?
commentary. Yeah, because I don't like. I watch Street Fighter, but then I can barely remember anything.
I mean, I do it for fun.